It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
John is over there doing research real time. We get you the facts and figures and all the different background information and things we talk about. John's burning up the internet right now. Any new stuff from when we last talked about the casino people and the sports gaming thing? Or is
there is not, but it does look, and so I double checked this. I used my obsessive compulsive skills to double check that I was looking at this correctly. And yeah, it does appear that at least $4 million in casino money is going against the Online Gambling Amendment 2. So it's kind of like a I mean, if you're in that space, if you're in the casino space and you figure there's only a certain amount of gambling money out there, maybe you don't want sports betting money interfering in your casino money.
See, that's the theory that I had, is that they look at that, that there's a pie out there and there's only so many ways you slice the pie. And the idea being is someone is going to be wagering, so to speak, that wager could be in the form of showing up at a casino, putting coins into, where you don't even do that anymore. Back in the day you did, but slot machines are roulette wheel or whatever, as opposed to betting if the Kansas City Chiefs can pull out a last-minute victory with seconds to go with a 54-yard field goal. You can say I listened to the game. You can see I listened to the game.
Yeah,
yesterday.
With a right-wing kicker, with a Harrison butt kicker up there too.
You brought that up, and with a left-wing fan in one of the luxury boxes, Taylor Swift, who was there at the game yesterday. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Talking about interesting situations. Football is turned into politics, and it's like, oh, okay, Harrison. The talk of Harrison has sort of died down, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. You don't hear that much about it anymore. But as long as Taylor is looking to finally get a baby, I guess we'll keep seeing her at Chiefs games.
You think she's trying to get pregnant with Kelsey?
Yeah, Brad. Now, I assume because she's a celebrity, she's had her eggs frozen, because she's at that. I think she's at make or break. She's at 35, so she's looking at a Hail Mary pass for those ovaries. You know what I'm
saying? Ladies listening, that is John Combest, Combst, who never says anything derogatory about women. Never.
I mean, Brad, I know you're a big recycler. If you're looking for some empty egg cartons, I'd hang around Taylor Swift, because they're not as full as they used to be.
Okay. I'm driving along yesterday, and I'm listening to a station. Well, it doesn't matter which station I'm listening to. And the top of the hour newscast, and this is a network newscast, and the guy is stammering a little bit because of the fact that he's saying there is a breaking story going on right now in Florida, an assassination attempt against the president. Okay, and I'm going like, what? Again?
Yeah.
And as the story unfolds, as the story first broke, there were shots fired at the president. And now I think we pretty much come to the realization that there were not shots fired at the president, that there were shots fired at the attempted assassin before he was able to get off a shot. And it turns out that there is a citizen hero, if you've heard this part of the story, who saw this guy come apparently out of the weeds or something like that next to the golf course, and hurriedly jump into his truck and take off. And the Good Samaritan citizen took a picture of the truck, called the police, told them what they saw. And interesting, I did watch the press conference early this morning. The sheriff down in that county essentially said they put this into, and this is fascinating to me, they put this into their license plate reader cameras, and they got a hit. And they got a hit on a car driving on interstate. They pulled the car over. They brought the witness to the scene. Is that the guy you saw? Yeah, that's him. Okay, now, if you see the pictures are somewhat spooky. Have you seen the pictures of his quote-unquote sniper's lair where he had set up to try to shoot Trump? Have you seen his
No, I haven't seen that, Brad. I haven't seen much about it. What is it?
He has two backpacks that look like they are zip tied to a fence. And the whole thing revolves around the fact that a Secret Service agent saw a rifle barrel protruding through this fence. And he apparently, and that's what they're saying, the shots were fired, he engaged the, I guess we would have to say, alleged shooter. And then that's when the shooter abandoned his position, left his rifle, left all his stuff, ran out onto the street, jumped into his black Nissan pickup truck or something like that, and took off. What they show is, and these were pictures that the Secret Service has released, is apparently 2 backpacks that have ceramic inserts. And if you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen, most of the police used to wear their bulletproof vests on the inside of their shirts. Now they're pretty much gone to the outside. And what those vests they are called, or they use now, are what they call essentially plate carriers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
They have a pocket in the very back where you put a ballistic shield. And sometimes they're made out of some kind of a metal, and other times they're made out of a ceramic material. And supposedly what this guy had done was he had put these 2 backpacks, or maybe they might have been bulletproof vests, there could have been plate carriers, that he he zip tied to the fence as sort of like armor. So in other words, he was trying to deflect any rounds that maybe shot at him. And there was a GoPro camera also, zip tied to the fence, looking out onto the fairway. Now, I've said this before. I'll say it again. And you know what? I'm sorry if this pisses some people off, but Mr. Trump, stop playing golf. Once again.
Yeah, you are not a fan of the golf playing, Brad.
Well, he's in a heated race. Every waking moment of his being should be, hey, vote for me. He should be doing, he should be walking through stores, show up, hey, I'm here at Costco. Hey, vote for me. I'm shaking hands, And once again, he's out playing damn golf. What bothers me about this is Mr. Trump is a hypocrite, because when he was running for president, he was criticizing Barack Obama, always playing golf. He's always playing golf. He's always playing golf. So when Mr. Trump gets into office, what does he do? He plays golf all the time. Now, I've said it before. I'll say it again. And I've had people say, well, he's got some, don't you begrudge him his free time? And here's the thing. Any of the presidents, like when you see the pictures of Biden sitting on the beach, you begrudge him vacation time? Yes, I do. Because it's not like he's going to have the job for 40 years. It's not like a guy who is, Monday through Friday pouring concrete or, wiring up houses or whatever he's doing. You know what? You need that time. You need that time to essentially refresh. That's what, essentially, that's what the term of recreation is. Recreate is the root word. You're recreating yourself, okay? But when you are the president, and you're in there for 4 years, maybe 8 if you're lucky. With Biden, it's only going to be 4. Pedal to the metal, 24/7, 365 times 4. What's 365 times 4? Do you have that off the top of your head?
I have no idea, Brett. Well, you got to figure in one of those is going to be a leap year, so you add an extra day.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to get my phone to work here. 365 times 4 is 365 times 4 is 1460. We'll add a day, 1461. Okay, for 1,461 days, you should be working the damn job. And once again, Trump, with all the stuff that comes out, there's a story that's on Fox News this very minute talking about our neighbor to the north, Iowa, which everybody say, oh, Iowa's a slam dunk for Trump. Not anymore. They're saying it could go to Kamala Harris. Now, once again, I'm a guy who spent a lot of time in Iowa, ran a business in Des Moines. When Des Moines goes Democratic, you're going like, oh, okay, what's going on here? If you know right now, they have a very popular governor up there, Governor Reynolds, who is a woman and has become very, very, very popular. And matter of fact, her name has been floated at times that ultimately down the road she could possibly, go for national office. Maybe she might want to run for, be somebody's. And there was a point in time when people were saying that she might have been chosen by Donald Trump because Trump liked her a lot. Okay, when you have a state like Iowa and the polls start to look like he may lose it, he shouldn't be out playing golf on a Sunday. That's just me.
Yeah, I think that, Brad, if we have 6 weeks left, I think if we look at every individual state and we start having freak out moments, whether you're a Kamala supporter or a Trump supporter, I think it would be a long 6 weeks.
Well, I guess the thing that, I've said it before, I've said it again. Trump's not going to win. He's going to lose, and he's going to lose the popular vote. He's going to win he's going to lose the electoral vote. He's just going to lose. That's all there is to it. Because, like you pointed out in what was that, story number 3 or number 2, where one of the huge conservative, personalities, news people, whatever you want to call them nowadays, Tucker Carlson, shows up in Kansas City, and he's also with a very, once upon a time, probably the talk of the town as far as media is concerned, Megyn Kelly, when she was on Fox, and then she left Fox, and Megyn Kelly, everybody's talking about Megyn Kelly. When those two show up together in town, and the press ignores them, what does that tell you?
It tells you that the media can't stand Donald Trump or Donald Trump supporters.
Well, it tells you that it's biased, and once again, and see, this is the thing that probably bothers me the most is we have ads on the radio. Matter of fact, we just picked up a new client. I don't know if you heard that. We have Lance Drury Law. Lance has been with us before, and he's back again. Thank you very much, Lance Drury. But Lance Drury, all the attorneys, when they advertise on radio, they have to run a disclaimer at the end of the ad. And, essentially that's by the Missouri Bar Association. It's funny because different states have different regulations depending upon the Bar Association. If you go to other cities, you'll hear different disclaimers on the end. As a matter of fact, I've done some. Back in the day, I did voice work for an attorney that was in like 5 southern states, and I had to do the commercial 5 different times because depending upon the state, some of the disclaimers were very short, some of them were very long. So it's not like you just changed the tag in the commercial. You had to actually do the whole commercial over because you had to recut it for time, if that makes any sense, okay? So, but once again, why doesn't the various news outlets say, we just want you to know that on our news staff, 82% of the people are Democrat and only 18% are Republican. So that should give you some idea as to what the content of our news is all about, right? Why did they give that disclaimer?
Well, because they have to maintain the kayfabe of the fact that they're objective and non-biased, and they have to believe their own stuff,
Or if when you listen to KWMU, it's been 100% of our people here at staff are Democrats, and we would never think of voting Republican. We just want you to know we are fair and balanced, right?
Yeah, and at a certain point, I just think, when you look at listenership or viewership or whatever it is, I think people understand that, and people are going to listen to stuff that confirms their own biases and their own views. And that's why people who are left-wing and very progressive are going to love St. Louis Public Radio.
Okay, now, here we go again. There's an article that I read last night, and I ingested probably way too much information about this whole shooting. One of the MSNBC hosts who was on the air, apparently when this happened yesterday, was talking about the fact that the reason we need to get rid of Donald Trump is that he incites violence, and this is the second time he's incited violence. Okay, now...
So blame now, don't Democrats always talk about victim blaming? Right. Isn't that victim blaming?
Right. Think about that for a minute. You got a guy who almost kills Trump to the point where, and once again, he talks about this, that if he hadn't turned his head and, look at some graphic that was on the stage, the bullet would have caught him in the back of the skull, okay? Instead, he turned his head, and the bullet, grazed his ear. But if he would have turned his head, and, the way your head sticks out from the back, like that is. So then you have a second assassination attempt, which, thankfully the guy got no rounds off. But it's Trump's fault because he's inciting violence. Now, think about that for a minute. That's like, okay, does that make any sense at all?
No, not at all. But I mean, it's going to fit whatever narrative is that Trump gets what he deserves and he's inciting this. Yeah, but I think, there's a disconnect between what real and normal people will see about this and be like, wow, whoever they is, they're really trying to get at Trump. People don't think the way that an MSNBC host does. I don't think most people think that way.
Okay. And over the weekend, I talked to one of my dyed-in-the-wool Republican friends. And their read on the situation was the Republican committee should get rid of Trump just like the Democrats got rid of Biden. And this is a person who has voted for Trump twice and at one point in time had many articles of Trump emblazoned clothing. Okay, now they've done a 180 and they're saying, no, not going to vote for him. I'm not going to vote for Kamala. I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but the Republicans should have a little sit down like they did with Biden and say, listen, Joe, you're not going to run for president anymore. And you know what? That's just the way it is. So just buckle under and do what we tell you to do. Okay? Remember, we're the party of democracy. Never would we pull any strings. But Joe, you're not going to run for president. Do you understand what I'm saying?
If we saw reliable polling on where Republican voters are, Brad, on Donald Trump, do you think that your friend that spun this yarn for you, that told you this tale, do you think that they're in the majority of Republican voters, or would you say correctly that they're in the minority of Republican voters?
I think the interesting thing that happens is no matter what happens, it's like the numbers don't change. Now, there's a story yesterday about Iowa, but that's just one state. But it's like, Trump gets shot at, he gets a little bump. Kamala Harris has this, this joyful, quote unquote, DNC, and she gets a little bump. But yet when things settle down, it's like a deadlock. And once again, I heard a guy over the weekend give all these statistics, and it was pretty interesting because he said he went through I don't know how many different presidential elections. He said never has there been in the history of polling in the last 20 or 30 years, never has there been a more evenly divided polling of Republicans and Democrats, and never have there's been as least the minimal swings that there's been now. And he goes through, talks about like in August of 2004, the Bush was up 22%, but by September he was only up 10%, and huge swings. I mean, most of the polls you look at, like what's the term that almost every poll when they do the story they say, and by the way, that is in the margin of error. So in other words, who knows? They're essentially saying, Kamala has a 1% lead, Trump has a 1% lead, but the margin of error is 3%, which means they don't know. They have no idea what the hell's going to happen, right?
It had to be the most deadlocked one since 2016. And I don't know the numbers at my point, but I remember, or at this point, but I remember that in 2016, folks had essentially had their mind made up about Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton long before the November election.
Well, no, Trump was way down. Trump, that was one of the things he talked about. Trump, they went 60 days before Election Day. Trump was way down. And remember, because Hillary was like, oh, it's a shoe, and she's got it, And that was the interesting thing, because so many of the pollsters got it incredibly wrong. I mean, to the point where not only did they call it for Hillary, but they were talking about she was going to have this huge margin, which she didn't have. If anything, she had a very slight, and in some states, the states they said she was going to carry, she lost them. And to the point where there's an interesting thing. We'll talk about this next break. I once again, I did a lot of radio listening over the weekend. Don't ask me why. But the interesting thing was I heard this fascinating thing, of all places on NPR, the guy talking about Nielsen. And wait till you hear this story. This is pretty interesting. Okay, you ready for a break?
I'm ready.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?